There is a rifle that became the most popular bolt action in American history by promising American hunters something simple, that it would work. That when a man pushed the safety off at the end of a day in the field, the rifle would do what he expected it to do. Before the first one left the factory, an engineer had already written down in his own hand that the promise had a problem. He drew the fix. He priced it at 5.2 cents per rifle. Nobody at Remington said yes. 5 million rifles left the factory before anyone outside the company found out. Remington in 1945 was a company with a problem. The military contracts that had kept the plant running through the war were ending. The civilian market was where the money now had to come from, and the civilian market already had a king. Winchester's Model 70 was on every gun shop wall in the country, trusted, praised, backed by the most influential gun writers in America. The men coming home from the war knew the Winchester by reputation, even if they had never held one. Remington was starting from behind. Remington needed something better. The rifle they developed had to be cheaper to build than the Winchester, accurate enough to earn its place on the same shelf, and the trigger had to feel like something that cost 3 times the price. They built that trigger. The pull weight was measured in ounces. No creep, no stacking, just a clean break that anyone who picked up the rifle recognized immediately as something different. Word spread through gun shops and hunting camps and the back pages of magazines. The rifle shot. The trigger was exceptional. Remington had their answer to Winchester. What the salesman did not know, what the hunting magazines did not know, what the father handing one to his son on a December morning did not know, was that the same engineering that made the trigger exceptional also made it capable of firing without anyone touching it. A small floating component inside the mechanism could be displaced by almost anything. Dried oil, a grain of sand, a trace of rust from a wet morning in the field. When that happened, the rifle would look right, feel right, load and cycle exactly as expected. But the only thing standing between the firing pin and the live cartridge in the chamber would be the safety itself. And when the safety moved from on to off, the rifle fired. This was documented inside Remington before the first production rifle reached a customer. The warning was written down clearly by the engineer responsible for the design. He also drew the fix and calculated the cost, 5.2 cents per rifle. Internal Remington documentation from that period, later obtained through legal proceedings, described his solution as the best design. But the same documentation also noted that the cost was too high. The fix was shelved. The rifle went into production. For the men who bought those rifles across the next 4 decades, none of this existed. What existed was a rifle that shot better than anything else at the price. The Model 700, as it was renamed in 1962, became the standard against which American hunters measured bolt-action rifles. It went to Vietnam in Marine sniper hands. It was adopted by the Army. Bench rest shooters built records on its action. By the time most American hunters had formed their opinion of what a good rifle felt like, that opinion had been shaped largely by the Model 700. It was in deer camps and duck blinds and the back of every pickup truck that went up a mountain in October. It was the rifle America chose. If this is the kind of story you want more of, the history behind the guns that America carried and the decisions made before they left the factory, subscribe now. This is exactly what this channel is about. In 1989, a Texas oilfield supervisor named Glenn Collins was hunting boar when his Remington 700 discharged and took his foot. His case went to trial in 1994. Remington sent an expert witness to demonstrate to the jury that the rifle was safe and that Collins must have been responsible. The expert handled the rifle on the witness stand. The rifle fired. No finger was on the trigger. The judge rose and put it on the record. The jury awarded Collins $17 million. 2 weeks after that verdict, a Remington executive drafted a proposal for a full recall of every Model 700 produced since 1960. The estimated cost was $22,700,000. The proposal was not acted on. It went into a drawer next to the original engineering drawings that had never been acted on either. On October 23, 2000, outside Bozeman, Montana, the Barber family was finishing a day of hunting. Barbara Barber took her Remington 700 to unload it. Her finger was not near the trigger. To unload a pre-1982 rifle, she had to move the safety from on to off before she could lift the bolt. She moved the safety. The rifle fired. The bullet passed through the wall of the horse trailer behind her and struck her 9-year-old son, Gus, who had climbed down to get his sweatshirt. He weighed 90 pounds. Rich Barber spent the next decade doing what a father in that situation who chooses not to stop does. He subpoenaed documents. He tracked down former Remington employees. He found the original engineering drawings showing the fix that had never been made. He found the 1994 recall proposal still in the drawer. And he found something that almost no gun owner in America knows. The Consumer Product Safety Commission, the federal agency that can force a recall on a toaster or a child's car seat on the basis of a single reported injury, has no legal authority over firearms. A gun company in America recalls its products on its own schedule, or it does not recall them at all. Remington did not recall them. In 2014, following a documentary that put the internal memos in front of the country and years of legal work that Rich Barber had helped build, Remington agreed to a class action settlement. The company would replace the trigger, free of charge, in approximately 7.2 million rifles. The replacement was, in its essential design, the same fix that had been drawn, priced and approved as the best solution, but it was shelved decades earlier. It would have cost 5.2 cents per rifle in 1948 money. Fewer than 1 in 4 eligible owners sent their rifles in. Most American hunters never heard about the settlement at all. In 2020, Remington's parent company filed for bankruptcy. The original company was broken apart and sold in pieces. The internal documents are now in a public archive, available to anyone with a Model 700 in the closet and an internet connection. The rifle is still out there, in gun safes from Maine to Montana, being handed from fathers to sons, being given to grandsons on their 12th birthdays. The trigger that Remington's own engineers had identified as a problem before the first production rifle ever reached a customer is still in the woods this fall. What this story is really about is the distance between the man who makes something and the man who trusts it. A hunter who carried a Model 700 for 30 years trusted it the way you trust something that has never given you a reason not to. That trust was not misplaced in the rifle shot. The trigger felt right. The problem was never the rifle. The problem was what the company knew about the rifle and chose not to say. The men who carried those rifles deserved to know what Remington knew before the first one left the factory. They never got the chance to make that choice for themselves. That is what betrayal looks like when it comes from a company instead of a person. Quiet, documented, filed away, and left for someone else to find.